I received the envelope just 3 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. My hands trembled as I read the note inside. Let's see how you face the guests when we won't be appearing at your wedding. My parents had left for Paris with my brother. On my wedding day, the air vanished from my lungs as reality sank in. I was truly alone, on what should have been the happiest day of my life. Yet somehow I found the strength to continue with the ceremony. After all, Ethan Parker was waiting for me, the man my family never bothered to meet the heir to Parker Industries. As I prepared to walk alone down the aisle, humiliation and defiance battled within me. I had no idea that our wedding would be broadcast, nationally, setting off a chain reaction that would change everything forever. Growing up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, I learned early that nothing I did would ever be enough for my parents, Frank and Linda Thompson. Our middle-class neighborhood was comfortable, but my parents always yearned for more, constantly comparing themselves to neighbors with bigger homes and newer cars. From childhood, the contrast in how they treated me versus my younger brother Tyler was painfully obvious. When I brought home straight, as my father would glance at my report card and ask why I wasn't in more advanced classes. When Tyler managed to scrape together B's and C's, they threw him a celebration dinner. This pattern continued throughout my life, a constant reminder that in their eyes, I would always be secondary. Tyler needs these new soccer cleats, Gabrielle. You understand, right? Your ballet lessons will have to wait until next semester, my mother would say, though next semester never came. By 16, I had stopped asking for anything, working part-time at a local grocery store to buy my own clothes and save for college. After high school, the ultimate betrayal came when my parents informed me they wouldn't be contributing to my education. College is expensive and we need to save for Tyler's future. He's going to be a doctor, you know, my father announced one evening, as if it had always been the plan. Meanwhile, I had graduated as valedictorian. I took out student loans, worked 30 hours a week at a campus bookstore, and put myself through state college while watching Facebook updates of Tyler partying through his freshman year at an expensive private university. My parents paid for his tuition, housing, and even gave him a monthly allowance. After graduation, I moved to Boston, desperate for a fresh start, away from the constant reminders of my secondary status. I landed an entry-level position at Meridian Marketing, determined to build a life on my own terms. Each small victory felt enormous. My first apartment, my first promotion, my first bonus. I called my parents with each milestone, hoping for just once to hear genuine pride in their voices. That's nice, honey. Did we tell you Tyler got an internship at Memorial Hospital? It's very competitive. My mother responded when I told her about my promotion to account manager after just 18 months. When Ethan proposed, I tentatively reached out to involve my parents in the wedding planning. Their sudden interest surprised me, until I realized they viewed my wedding as their social debut. They demanded control over guest lists, venue choices, and seating arrangements despite refusing to contribute financially. We're your parents, Gabrielle. We should have final say on these decisions, my father insisted during a tense phone call. Not if you're not paying for any of it, I replied, a rare moment of standing my ground that left an icy silence on the line. The tension escalated over the following months. Each call ended in arguments or cold shoulders. I finally decided to plan, without their input, a decision that seemed to offend them more than my engagement itself. The morning of my wedding brought the most shocking betrayal yet. After finding their note, I discovered a second envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a bank statement showing a withdrawal of $8,000 from my personal account, my emergency savings. A sticky note attached read, "Borrowed this for our trip. We deserve this vacation more than you deserve that overpriced wedding. Maybe this will teach you some respect." They had somehow gained access to my account, likely because it was opened at a branch in my hometown when I was 18 with my mother as a co-signer. I had never thought to change that arrangement, never imagining they would steal from me. In that moment, standing in my apartment in my bathrobe with my hair half done, I felt something inside me finally break free. The last thread of hope that they might someday change had snapped. I called the bank immediately to report the theft and closed the account, my voice surprisingly steady. Then I called Charlotte, Ethan's mother, who had become more of a parent to me in 2 years than my own had been in 27. "I'll be right over," she said, without hesitation, no questions asked. And in that moment, I realized that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them most. I met Ethan 3 years ago at a company charity auction. Meridian Marketing had organized the event for several local businesses, and as the lead account manager, I was running around ensuring everything went smoothly. I nearly crashed into him while carrying a box of auction paddles. "Whoa, there need a hand." He steadied me with a gentle grip on my elbow, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners when he smiled. "I'm fine, thanks," I said, automatically defensive, as I always was around attractive men in suits. In my experience, they were usually entitled and condescending. "At least let me take half," he insisted, already relieving me of part of my burden. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Parker." The name meant nothing to me then. He was just a nice guy, in a reasonably priced suit, who spent the next hour helping me arrange auction items and charming elderly donors with his easy laugh and genuine attention. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I gave it without hesitation. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. He drove an older model Volvo that had clearly seen better days, and he lived in a modest apartment in Somerville. I appreciated that he wasn't flashy or pretentious. We talked for hours about books, travel, dreams, and our childhoods, though I carefully edited mine, sharing only the highlight reel rather than the painful reality. "My parents are pretty traditional," I said vaguely when he asked about my family. "We're not especially close. What about yours?" "I hit the family lottery," he said with an unabashed smile. "My parents are my best friends. My dad taught me everything I know about business and integrity, and my mom reminds me daily not to take myself too seriously." 6 months into our relationship, Ethan invited me to Sunday dinner with his family. I expected a nice home in the suburbs. Instead, his family home turned out to be a gated estate in Brookline with a name rather than an address. When the massive wrought iron gates opened to reveal a sweeping driveway, leading to what could only be described as a mansion, I turned to him in confusion. "Ethan, what is this place?" He looked sheepish, running a hand through his hair. "I should have told you sooner. This is where I grew up. My family owns Parker Industries." Parker Industries, one of the largest technology conglomerates on the East Coast, known for innovative medical devices and generous philanthropic initiatives. The company, whose CEO, Jackson Parker, had been on the cover of Fortune just last month. "Your father is Jack Parker?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Ethan nodded, watching my reaction carefully. "I wanted you to know me, not my family's company or money. Can you forgive me for not telling you sooner?" I sat in stunned silence for a moment before bursting into laughter. "This explains so much. Like why you always insist on paying for dinner but drive that terrible car." His relieved smile warmed me from the inside out. "The car was my first purchase with my own money. I can't bear to part with it." That dinner changed everything. Jack and Charlotte Parker welcomed me as if I were already family. They asked thoughtful questions about my work, listened attentively to my answers, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. Charlotte hugged me warmly when we left, whispering, "He's never brought anyone home before. You must be very special." As our relationship deepened, I struggled with insecurities about fitting into Ethan's world. I worried what would happen when my parents eventually discovered his background. Would they suddenly approve of me because of his wealth? Would they try to use my relationship for their own gain? The thought made me physically ill. "I don't want to tell my family about your background," I confessed to Ethan one night. "Not because I'm ashamed, God no, but because I'm afraid they'll only see dollar signs instead of the amazing person you are." Ethan held me close, understanding without judgment. "Whatever you decide is fine with me. I'm in love with you, not your family." What I didn't know then was that my parents had already met Ethan once, nearly a year into our relationship. We had accidentally run into them at a restaurant in Philadelphia when Ethan and I were there for a weekend trip. The encounter was brief, just enough time for introductions before we were led to our separate tables. Later, Ethan revealed what happened after I'd excused myself to use the restroom. My father had made a dismissive comment about Ethan's casual attire, and my mother had pointedly asked what he did for a living. "I work in technology," Ethan had replied simply. "Well, I hope it pays enough to take care of our daughter properly," my father had said with a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. When the check came at the end of the meal, Ethan quietly paid for both our table and my parents, without telling me, not out of arrogance but simple kindness. They never knew who had really picked up their tab, and Ethan never mentioned the encounter again until much later. As we approached our second anniversary, Ethan proposed during a private picnic at the public garden. No flashy displays or photographers, just the two of us, a simple platinum ring, and a promise to build a life together based on love and respect. I said yes without hesitation, knowing I had found not just a partner, but a home for my heart. The first person I called after our engagement was Charlotte Parker. She squealed with delight and insisted we come over immediately to celebrate. When we arrived at the Parker estate, Jack was already opening champagne, and Ethan's sister Audrey had created an impromptu engagement banner. "Welcome to the family officially," Jack said, engulfing me in a bear hug. "Though you've been part of it in our hearts for quite some time." Charlotte wiped away happy tears. "Have you thought about what kind of wedding you want, dear?" "No pressure at all, but I'd love to help if you'd like." Their genuine excitement stood in stark contrast to my parents' reaction when I finally worked up the courage to call them the next day. "Engaged already?" My mother's tone conveyed more alarm than joy. "What's the rush? You've only known him for 2 years. We're in love, Mom. 2 years isn't rushing." "Well, I suppose congratulations are in order," she said without enthusiasm. "What does he do again? You've been so vague about him." I hesitated, then decided a partial truth was best. "He works for a technology company. It's going very well." "Is it a stable position?" "You know, in this economy." "Yes, Mom. Very stable." I changed the subject quickly. "We're thinking about a spring wedding next year." "Next year? That's not nearly enough time to plan a proper wedding. Your cousin Tiffany took 3 years to plan hers." "We don't want anything elaborate," I explained, though in truth I hadn't discussed specific plans with Ethan yet. "Nonsense. This is your only wedding, hopefully, and we need to do it right. Your father and I should have a say since we'll be hosting." I took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom, Ethan and I will be paying for the wedding ourselves." The silence that followed was frosty. "I see. Well, if that's how you want to do things." Over the next few weeks, Charlotte gently guided me through initial wedding plans while respecting my preferences. We found a beautiful venue at the Boston Public Library, selected a date in May, and began compiling a guest list. "Gabrielle, darling, how many guests should we expect from your side?" Charlotte asked delicately one afternoon as we reviewed catering options. "Not many," I admitted. "Maybe 30 at most. I don't have a large extended family, and I've lost touch with most friends from Pennsylvania." Charlotte squeezed my hand. "Quality over quantity always." When my mother learned we had secured the Boston Public Library, one of the most sought-after venues in the city, her attitude shifted dramatically. "The library? How did you manage that? They book years in advance." Her voice contained a new note of respect, perhaps even a hint of suspicion. "We got lucky with a cancellation," I lied, not mentioning that Jack Parker sat on the library's board of trustees. "Well, your father and I will need to be involved in the decisions from here on. The Thompson family has a reputation to uphold. I'm making a list of people we'll need to invite." Thus began the battle for control of my wedding. My parents, who had shown little interest in my life for years, suddenly had strong opinions about everything from flower arrangements to the cocktail hour menu. More troubling, they began inviting business associates and distant acquaintances without consulting me, expanding my 30 at most to nearly 100 people. "Mom, we agreed on a smaller wedding," I protested during a particularly heated phone call. "This is how weddings work, Gabrielle. There are social obligations. Your father has invited several important clients who could be very valuable connections." "For who?" "For you and Dad. This is my wedding, not a networking event." My father took the phone. "Don't be selfish, Gabrielle. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "What exactly have you done for me recently, Dad? You didn't pay for my education, you've never helped with my career, and now you're not contributing to this wedding but want to dictate every detail. How dare you speak to me that way? We raised you, put a roof over your head, and now you're turning your back on family." The irony was almost too much to bear. Things grew even more complicated when my brother Tyler learned of my engagement. He called ostensibly to congratulate me, but quickly shifted to asking about Ethan's professional connections. "Is he in healthcare tech by any chance? I'm looking to transition from clinical work into the administrative side, and contacts in medical technology would be helpful." Tyler, I'm not going to use my relationship to advance your career. Come on, Gabs. That's what family is for. You finally have something valuable to offer. His words stung more than he knew. The situation reached a breaking point when my parents unexpectedly showed up in Boston 2 months before the wedding, demanding to see the venue and meet Ethan's family. You've been engaged for 6 months, and we haven't even met his parents yet. What are you hiding? My mother accused over lunch at an expensive restaurant they expected me to pay for. Backed into a corner, I arranged a dinner at the Parker estate, finally revealing Ethan's background to my family. The transformation in their behavior was immediate and revolting. My father, who had been dismissive of tech work, suddenly became fascinated by the industry. My mother, who had complained about the wine selection at lunch, now complimented everything from the Parker's driveway to their choice of dinner napkins. Most disgusting was their revisionist history of our family dynamics. We've always known Gabrielle was destined for greatness, my father told Jack over dessert. We pushed her to be independent from an early age. That's why she's so successful now. Gabrielle tells us you've been incredibly supportive, Charlotte replied with a pointed look at me. She's lucky to have parents who value her achievements. I nearly choked on my coffee. The evening ended with my parents effusively inviting the Parkers to stay with them when they came for the wedding. Our home is modest compared to this, of course, but we'd love to host you. In the car afterward, my parents' masks dropped. Why didn't you tell us he was a Parker? My mother hissed. Do you have any idea how this could have benefited your brother's career if we'd known sooner? That's exactly why I didn't tell you, I replied quietly. The final shock came 3 weeks before the wedding when I overheard my mother on the phone with her sister. Of course, we're paying for most of it, she was saying. The venue alone cost a fortune, but nothing's too good for our only daughter. The Parkers offered to contribute, but Frank insisted we handle it ourselves. After all, we raised such an accomplished daughter who caught the eye of Boston royalty. Clearly, we did something right. I confronted her immediately. She didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. What's the harm in a little white lie? It makes us look good, and it's not hurting anyone. But it was hurting someone. It was hurting me. The morning of my wedding day began with sunshine streaming through my hotel suite windows at the Four Seasons. Charlotte had insisted on booking it for me, saying every bride deserved a special place to prepare for her big day. Just imagine the photos, darling, she'd said, with the public garden as your backdrop. I woke feeling a mixture of excitement and lingering anxiety. Despite all the drama with my family, I was marrying the man I loved. Nothing could dim that joy completely. My hair and makeup team arrived at 8, followed by my 2 bridesmaids from work, Jessica and Megan. We sipped champagne and played music while I was transformed into a bride, my anxieties temporarily forgotten in the flurry of activity. At 10:30, there was a knock at the door. Jessica answered it and returned with a cream-colored envelope, her expression concerned. It's from your mom, she said quietly. I opened it, expecting last-minute instructions, or perhaps even a peace offering. Instead, I found a brief note in my mother's precise handwriting. We've decided to take an impromptu trip to Paris with Tyler. Let's see how you face the guests when we won't be appearing at your wedding. Perhaps this will teach you to respect your family's position. Have a nice life with your rich husband. The room went silent as I read the note again, unable to process what I was seeing. Are you okay? Megan asked, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. They're not coming, I whispered. They've gone to Paris instead. Jessica took the note from my trembling hands and read it aloud. Oh my God, Gabrielle, I'm so sorry. The makeup artist and hairstylist exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly unsure how to proceed. Please continue, I told them, my voice hollow. The wedding is still happening. I excused myself to the bathroom where I finally let the tears fall, not just for today's betrayal, but for a lifetime of them. For every time I'd been made to feel less than, for every achievement that had been dismissed, for every hope that they might someday truly love me, as I deserved to be loved. When I emerged, Jessica handed me her phone. You should see this. It was my checking account app. The balance, which had been just over $8,000 yesterday, now read $42. They took my money, I said numbly. They emptied my account to pay for their trip. That's illegal, Megan said, outrage coloring her voice. We need to call the bank right now. While Jessica helped me navigate the fraud claim with my bank, Megan called Charlotte to inform her of the situation. Within 20 minutes, Charlotte and Jack arrived at my suite, their faces masks of concern and barely controlled anger. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry," Charlotte said, wrapping me in a hug that felt more motherly than any embrace I'd ever received from my own mother. Jack's voice was steady, but I could hear the fury beneath his calm exterior. "I've called our family attorney. We'll handle the financial situation. Your only job today is to marry our son." "But what about the ceremony?" I asked suddenly, remembering the reality of the situation. "I don't have anyone to walk me down the aisle." Jack and Charlotte exchanged a glance. "I would be honored to walk with you, Jack," said his eyes surprisingly bright. "If you'll have me?" Fresh tears filled my eyes, but these were different. These were tears of gratitude, of finding family in unexpected places. "I would love that," I managed to say. While I finished getting ready, my phone began buzzing with messages. My cousin Amy had called to say she'd received a group text from my mother early that morning, explaining they had decided to take advantage of a last-minute travel opportunity rather than attend my hastily planned wedding. "She told everyone they tried to talk you into postponing, but you refused." Amy said, her disgust evident even through the phone. "Gabrielle, that's complete BS. I wanted you to know that most of the family sees right through this. The revelation that my parents had planned this humiliation weeks in advance rather than making a spontaneous decision somehow cut deeper than the abandonment itself. This wasn't an emotional reaction. It was calculated cruelty designed to cause maximum pain on what should have been the happiest day of my life." By the time we arrived at the library for the ceremony, I had cycled through shock, grief, and anger, finally settling into a strange calm. The historic reading room had been transformed with delicate spring flowers and soft lighting. 150 guests filled the chairs, most from Ethan's side, but I was surprised to see several of my relatives had come despite my parents' absence. Standing in the antechamber waiting for the music to cue my entrance, I caught sight of something unexpected. A camera crew discreetly positioned near the back of the room. "What's that about?" I whispered to Jack. He looked slightly sheepish. I should have mentioned earlier. Boston Life asked to feature the wedding in their society segment. Apparently, a Parker wedding is considered newsworthy. I told them they could film the ceremony and first dance, only nothing intrusive. "I hope that's all right. We can send them away if you'd prefer." Boston Life was a popular lifestyle program that aired across New England and was often picked up by national networks. The thought of my wedding being broadcast would have horrified me yesterday. Today it felt like poetic justice. "No, let them stay." I decided, a small defiant part of me, hoping my parents would somehow see it. The music began. Not the traditional wedding march my mother had insisted upon, but the romantic violin piece Ethan and I had originally chosen. Jack offered his arm. "Ready?" he asked gently. I took a deep breath and nodded. Ready. As we stepped into the reading room, all eyes turned toward us. I saw Ethan waiting at the altar, his face lighting up at the sight of me. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was walking toward home, toward family, toward the life I deserved. Jack squeezed my hand as we reached the altar. "We're the lucky ones," he whispered before placing my hand in Ethan's. The ceremony passed in a blur of emotion. We exchanged the vows we had written ourselves, promising to be each other's strength, each other's safe harbor, each other's most truthful mirror. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Ethan's kiss felt like a new beginning, a promise of better days ahead. At the reception held in the library's courtyard under a canopy of twinkling lights, Ethan addressed our guests before the first dance. "I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate with us today," he said, his hand firm around mine. "Some of you may have noticed that Gabrielle's parents aren't here. They chose not to attend." A murmur ran through the crowd. But what they don't understand is that family isn't just about blood. It's about who chooses to stand by you, who chooses to love you without conditions or expectations. He turned to face me directly, his voice softening. "Gabrielle, you are the strongest, most genuine person I've ever known. What happened today doesn't diminish you. It only reveals how brightly you shine despite everything. I'm proud to be your husband, and I promise you'll never lack for family again." There wasn't a dry eye in the courtyard, including my own. As we moved into our first dance, I caught sight of the Boston Life cameras capturing the moment. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that this footage would eventually find its way to Paris, and for once the thought of my parents seeing my life unfold without them brought not pain but liberation. Our reception unfolded like a dream. The Boston Public Library's courtyard transformed into an enchanted garden. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, reflecting in the fountain at the center. Round tables, draped in ivory linens, surrounded a polished wooden dance floor, each centerpiece a miniature work of art created from spring flowers and antique books. After our first dance, Charlotte rose to give a speech. I had been dreading this moment, fearing the awkwardness of having only one set of parents present. But Charlotte, ever graceful, knew exactly what to say. When Ethan first told us about Gabrielle, his face lit up in a way we'd never seen before. She began, her voice warm and steady. Jack and I knew then that she was special. What we didn't know was how quickly she would become essential to our family, how completely she would capture not just our son's heart but ours as well. She turned to address me directly. Gabrielle families come in many forms. Some we're born into, others we create along the way. Today isn't just about gaining a daughter-in-law. It's about celebrating the daughter we feel we've always had. Your strength, grace, and genuine heart have enriched our lives beyond measure. She raised her glass. To Ethan and Gabrielle, may your life together be built on the foundation of love, respect, and unwavering support you've already established. We are endlessly proud of you both. Tears streamed down my face as I embraced her. Thank you for being here, I whispered. For being you. Always, sweetheart, she replied. Always. Throughout the evening, several relatives from my side approached to offer support, many expressing their disgust with my parents' behavior. Your mother sent everyone a text claiming they had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a Paris trip, my Aunt Susan confided. As if anyone believes that couldn't wait a day or two. I'm so sorry, Gabrielle. You deserve better. My cousin Amy was more blunt. They've always been jealous of you, you know. Your success, your independence. This wedding just proves you've built a beautiful life without their help, and they couldn't stand to witness it. While these conversations brought some comfort, the most surprising support came from unexpected sources. Jessica and Megan had apparently spread the word among the guests about my parents' theft of my savings and several of Ethan's family friends, many of them influential attorneys and financial professionals, approached to offer assistance. Identity theft is a serious crime, one distinguished gentleman told me, pressing his business card into my hand, even when committed by family members. Call my office Monday. No charge. As the evening progressed, I found myself genuinely enjoying my wedding, despite the morning's heartbreak. Ethan rarely left my side, his steady presence, a constant reminder of what truly mattered. We danced, laughed, cut the cake, and celebrated, surrounded by people who chose to be there, who chose to love us. Around 9 o'clock, Jessica pulled me aside, her expression concerned. Your phone's been blowing up in my purse. Do you want to check it? I had given her my phone to hold during the reception, wanting to be fully present without distractions. Who is it? I asked, though I already knew. Your mom. 27 missed calls in the last hour. And your brother? And your dad. I stared at the screen, watching it light up with yet another incoming call. They must have seen the broadcast. Boston Life had aired a segment about the society wedding of the season during their early evening broadcast, highlighting the historic venue, the impressive guest list, and the touching moment when the groom's father escorted the bride down the aisle. They had included footage of Ethan's speech about chosen family, which had apparently gone viral on social media. What do you want to do? Jessica asked. I considered for a moment, then silenced the phone and handed it back to her. Nothing. Not today. Today is about Ethan and me, not them. As if summoned by his name, Ethan appeared at my side. Everything okay? I smiled, a genuine smile that reached all the way to my heart. Everything is perfect. Later that night, as we prepared to leave for our hotel, I checked my phone one last time. 65 missed calls, 38 voicemails, 52 text messages. I scrolled through the texts briefly, catching snippets of escalating panic and anger. There must be some mistake with the broadcast. Call us immediately. You're embarrassing us in front of everyone. How could you let them say those things about us on television? The last one from my father read simply, This is unforgivable. I laughed softly at the irony. Ethan glanced over questioningly. My father thinks I've done something unforgivable, I explained, showing him the message. Ethan's expression darkened. The audacity. It's okay, I said, surprised to find. I meant it. Really. They've shown me exactly who they are, and now I can stop hoping they'll change. I switched off my phone completely and placed it in my clutch. Tomorrow we would leave for our honeymoon in Bali, 2 weeks of peace before facing whatever came next. Tonight belonged to us alone. The following morning, social media was ablaze with clips from our wedding. Someone had captured Ethan's speech on their phone and shared it, triggering thousands of supportive comments. The Boston Life segment had been picked up by a national morning show which framed it as a heartwarming story about finding family in unexpected places. Before boarding our flight to Bali, I checked my email one last time and found a message from my cousin Amy with a subject line that read simply, "Thought you should see this." Inside was a screenshot of my mother's Instagram post from the previous morning. A selfie of her, my father, and Tyler on the plane to Paris with the caption, "Spontaneous family adventure. Sometimes you have to seize the day. Number Paris with my favorites. Number family first." The timestamp confirmed what Amy had told me. They had planned this trip well in advance, deliberately choosing my wedding day for maximum impact. More telling was a comment Tyler had left. "Can't believe we're missing the wedding for this, but so worth it. Let's see how she manages without us there." I showed the screenshot to Ethan, who pulled me close. "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. "I'm finally seeing with complete clarity. This isn't about me failing them. It's about them failing me over and over again." "What do you want to do?" he asked. "Right now I want to go to Bali with my husband and not think about them for 2 whole weeks." And that's exactly what we did. I turned off my phone, disconnected from email, and immersed myself in newlywed bliss on a beautiful island halfway around the world. We swam in crystal-clear waters, hiked to ancient temples, indulged in spa treatments, and made love in our private villa overlooking the ocean. For 14 days, I existed in a bubble of happiness untainted by family drama. I didn't know that back home, the story was still unfolding in ways I couldn't have imagined. While Ethan and I were disconnecting from the world in Bali, my parents were living a nightmare of their own making in Paris. I pieced together what happened later through conversations with relatives and friends who witnessed the fallout. The morning after our wedding, Boston Life aired an extended segment on their Sunday program titled A Boston Fairy Tale, The Parker Thompson Wedding. The segment featured beautiful footage of our ceremony and reception interviews with Jack and Charlotte about welcoming me into their family, and of course Ethan's powerful speech about chosen family. The producer, sensing a compelling human interest angle, had done some digging and included a brief mention of my background. The bride who put herself through college and built a successful marketing career without family support found a place, true home with the Parker family who embraced her as their own. The segment was picked up by national morning shows and quickly went viral on social media, where people shared it with hashtags like #ChoosenFamily and #TrueLove. By Sunday evening, it had reached Paris, where my parents were dining at an expensive restaurant near the Eiffel Tower, proudly showing fellow tourists photos of their spontaneous Paris adventure. According to my cousin Amy, who heard it directly from my Aunt Susan, my mother's phone began buzzing incessantly with messages from friends and acquaintances who had seen the broadcast. "Is it true you skipped Gabrielle's wedding to go to Paris? Did you really steal her savings? How could you let your daughter walk down the aisle alone?" My father reportedly became so agitated that he knocked over a bottle of €300 wine, creating a scene that ended with them being asked to leave the restaurant. Back in their hotel room, they frantically searched for the broadcast online and found not only the official segment, but dozens of reaction videos and commentary pieces, most of them highly critical of their behavior. The first voicemail they left me came at 3 a.m. Paris time. "Gabrielle, this is your mother. There seems to be some horrible misunderstanding. Call us immediately to clarify what's happening." By morning, their tone had shifted to anger. "This is completely unacceptable. You've humiliated us internationally. We demand you issue a correction statement immediately." By afternoon, as the story continued to spread and former classmates, colleagues, and neighbors began reaching out to them directly, panic set in. "Please, Gabrielle. People are saying terrible things about us. Your father's business associates have seen this. You need to tell people there's been a misunderstanding. My brother Tyler, always concerned primarily with appearances, left his own series of increasingly frantic messages. Gabs, what the hell? My residency director saw that broadcast. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? Fix this now. Eventually, they decided to cut their dream Paris vacation short, booking the first available flight back to Pennsylvania. They attempted to contact Charlotte and Jack, directly leaving messages with their household staff about clearing up this unfortunate situation. They were informed politely but firmly that the Parkers were not available to speak with them. Upon landing in Philadelphia, they drove straight to Boston with the apparent intention of confronting me in person, unaware that Ethan and I were still in Bali. They arrived at the Parker estate around midnight, demanding to speak with us, and creating enough of a disturbance that the security team was forced to intervene. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, the family has requested that you not be admitted to the property, the head of security informed them. If you continue to create a disturbance, we will be forced to contact the authorities. This is outrageous, my father reportedly shouted. We're family. We have every right to be here. According to Mrs. Parker Thompson's explicit instructions, you are not to be admitted under any circumstances. The security guard replied calmly. Those instructions were very clear. I hadn't actually left any such instructions. I'd been too focused on our wedding and honeymoon to think that far ahead, but Charlotte, ever protective, had anticipated the possibility and acted accordingly. When she told me this story later, she simply said, "Mothers know when their children need protecting even from other mothers." Denied access to the Parker estate, my parents retreated to a nearby hotel, continuing their campaign of calls and messages. They began contacting mutual acquaintances, spinning a narrative that they had been uninvited from the wedding at the last minute by the controlling Parker family who had turned their daughter against them. This version of events might have gained some traction, if not for two factors. First, the existence of their own social media posts, boasting about choosing Paris over my wedding, and second, my cousin Amy's decision to share screenshots of those posts with Boston Life, which promptly ran a follow-up story titled, "The Wedding Betrayal, the Truth Behind the Viral Parker Thompson Ceremony." By the time Ethan and I returned from our honeymoon refreshed and happier than ever, my parents' reputation in their social and business circles had been irreparably damaged. Several of my father's clients had severed ties with his accounting firm, and my mother had been asked to step down from the charity board she had so proudly joined the previous year. As our taxi pulled up to the Parker estate, where we would be staying temporarily while house hunting, Charlotte met us at the door with a slightly guilty expression. "Welcome home, darlings. Before you come in, I should warn you. There's been a bit of drama while you were away." Over lunch, she and Jack filled us in on everything that had transpired, including my parents' midnight visit and the media attention the wedding had received. "We tried to shield you from it during your honeymoon," Jack explained, "but I'm afraid your parents have made quite a spectacle of themselves." I listened to the entire account with surprising detachment, as if they were describing events that had happened to someone else entirely. When they finished, I simply asked, "Have they been back here since that night?" "No," Charlotte replied. "But they've called daily. And your brother came by once demanding to speak with us about damage control. Security sent him away as well." I nodded, processing this information. "And my bank account? Any progress on recovering the money they took?" "Our attorney has filed the necessary paperwork," Jack said. "The bank has already restored the funds to your account provisionally while they investigate." Given the evidence, their note essentially confessing to taking it their Paris posts with timestamps, it's a clear case of theft. "Do you want to press charges?" Charlotte asked gently. "No one would blame you if you did." I considered this for a long moment. "Not yet. Let's see if they return the money voluntarily first. If not, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." That evening, after settling back into our routine, I finally turned on my personal phone. The barrage was immediate: 97 voicemails, 143 text messages, 68 emails, and countless social media notifications. I felt momentarily overwhelmed until Ethan placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to deal with this tonight," he reminded me. "Or ever if you don't want to." I smiled gratefully. I think I need to face it sometime, but maybe not all at once. I started with the most recent voicemail left earlier that day by my father. "Gabrielle, this has gone on long enough. Your mother is practically bedridden with stress. My business is suffering. Your brother's career could be affected. All because you couldn't keep your personal grievances private. We raised you better than this. Call us immediately so we can discuss how to fix the damage you've caused." There was no apology, no acknowledgement of their actions, only blame and demands. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of clarity. They would never change. They would never see how they had hurt me. They would never take responsibility. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely at peace with that reality. I turned off the phone again and set it aside. "I think I need some time to decide how to handle this," I told Ethan. "But right now, I just want to enjoy being home with my husband." He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Take all the time you need. I'm right here beside you, whatever you decide." That night, as we lay in bed discussing our honeymoon and our plans for finding a home of our own, I realized something profound, the constant ache I had carried for years, the yearning for parental approval, the hope that they might someday truly see me, had vanished. In its place was a quiet certainty that I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. 3 days after our return from Bali, I made a decision. After careful consideration and many conversations with Ethan, Charlotte, and Jack, I realized I needed proper closure with my parents. Not for them, but for myself. "I want to meet with them," I told Ethan over breakfast. "On neutral ground, just once, to say what needs to be said." "Are you sure?" he asked, concern evident in his eyes. I nodded. "I've spent my entire life hoping they would change, that they would suddenly become the parents I needed. I need to stop that cycle and move forward." "Do you want me to come with you?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. "But I need to do the talking." I sent my parents a text message. The first communication I'd initiated since finding their note on my wedding day. "I'm willing to meet you once to discuss everything. Wednesday, 3 o'clock at the Meridian Hotel Lobby Cafe. Ethan will be with me." Their response came almost immediately. "We'll be there. We have a lot to discuss about how to fix this situation." The days leading up to Wednesday were strangely peaceful. I spent time with Ethan looking at houses in Cambridge, had lunch with Jessica and Megan to thank them for their support, and even met with the attorney handling the theft case, who assured me the evidence was overwhelmingly in my favor. "If you decide to press charges, they would likely face consequences," he explained. "But many clients in family disputes prefer to seek restitution without criminal charges." "What would you recommend?" I asked. "That depends entirely on what outcome you're seeking," he replied. "Punishment, restitution, or simply creating a legal record of the event." I considered his words carefully. I want them to understand there are consequences for their actions. But mostly I want to be free of this pattern forever. Wednesday arrived with unexpected sunshine after days of rain. I chose my outfit carefully. A sleek navy dress that made me feel confident, paired with the pearl earrings Charlotte had given me as a wedding gift. Ethan wore a simple suit, his silent support evident in every glance, every touch. We arrived at the Meridian 15 minutes early, selecting a table in the corner of the cafe with good visibility of the entrance. I ordered herbal tea to calm my nerves, though I was surprised to find I felt more resolved than anxious. At precisely 3 o'clock they walked in. My mother, father, and unexpectedly my brother Tyler. They spotted us immediately, my mother's face tightening as they approached. "Gabrielle," my father said stiffly as they reached our table. "Ethan, thank you for coming," I replied, gesturing to the empty chairs. "I didn't expect Tyler to join us." "We're a family," my mother said pointedly. "We face things together." I nearly laughed at the irony but maintained my composure. "Please sit." They did so, an uncomfortable silence settling over the table until my father cleared his throat. "Well, I think it's clear we have a situation that needs resolving," he began in his business negotiation voice. "The damage to our family's reputation has been significant, but with the right approach, we can still salvage this." "And what approach would that be?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "A joint statement explaining that there was a miscommunication about the wedding date. Perhaps something about us having prepaid arrangements that couldn't be changed, and you understanding completely," my mother suggested, as if this were a perfectly reasonable solution. "We could mention that we're all reconciled now, and request privacy for our family." I took a sip of my tea, letting the warmth steady me. That would be a lie. It's a narrative adjustment, Tyler interjected. People do it all the time in PR crises. This isn't a PR crisis, I replied calmly. This is about decades of emotional abuse and manipulation, culminating in you abandoning me on my wedding day and stealing my savings. My mother gasped. Emotional abuse? How dare you, after everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me? I asked, genuinely curious about what they believed they had contributed to my life. We raised you, my father exclaimed. Put a roof over your head, clothes on your back. The bare minimum legal requirements for having a child, I noted. And since I turned 18, what support have you provided? You didn't help with college. You didn't help with my career. You've consistently favored Tyler in every way possible. That's not true, my mother protested weakly. It is true, I countered, pulling out my phone. I have years of evidence. Would you like to see the text messages where you told me you couldn't attend my college graduation because Tyler had a soccer tournament? Or perhaps the email where you explained that you couldn't help with my tuition because you were saving for Tyler's medical school? Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Or perhaps I continued, you'd prefer to explain this. I placed a printout on the table, a screenshot of my mother's Instagram post from Paris. You planned to skip my wedding weeks in advance, then pretended it was a spontaneous decision. My father's face reddened. You're taking things out of context. Am I? Then, please, provide the context that makes stealing $8,000 from your daughter acceptable. At the mention of the money, my mother glanced away. My father leaned forward, lowering his voice. That money was a loan. We intended to pay it back. A loan requires consent from both parties, I replied. And your note specifically said you deserved it more than I deserved my wedding. We were upset, my mother admitted. We said things we didn't mean. I believe you meant every word I said quietly, just as you meant it when you said, let's see how you face the guests when we won't be appearing at your wedding. You wanted to hurt me. You wanted to humiliate me. You've always wanted to keep me small, controllable, and grateful for crumbs of your attention. That's ridiculous, Tyler scoffed. You've always been overly sensitive. I turned to face him directly. You've benefited from their favoritism your entire life, Tyler. Of course you don't see it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My father was the first to break it. What exactly do you want, Gabrielle Money? Is that why you married into the Parker family? For financial security? Ethan, who had remained silent until now, tensed beside me. I placed a calming hand on his arm. I married Ethan because I love him, I said simply. Something you would understand if you had ever bothered to get to know him. As for what I want, I took a deep breath. I want you to repay the money you stole. Not because I need it, clearly I don't, but because actions should have consequences. And if we do that, my mother asked cautiously, will you make this public statement? I shook my head. No, I won't lie for you. But I also won't be pressing criminal charges, which I could easily do with the evidence I have. My father's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of relief quickly masked by indignation. That's very generous of you, he said sarcastically. It's not generosity, I corrected him. It's me choosing to move forward with my life. Which brings me to the other thing I want, boundaries. Boundaries, my mother repeated, as if the word were foreign. Yes. Moving forward, our relationship will be on my terms. No more manipulation, no more favoritism, no more attempts to control my life. If you can respect that, we can have a limited relationship. If not, then this is goodbye. You would cut off your own family, my father demanded incredulously. You cut me off first, I reminded him gently. On my wedding day. I'm simply making it official. This is the Parker influence, my mother accused. They've turned you against us. I smiled slightly. The Parkers showed me what a loving family looks like. The contrast made your behavior impossible to ignore any longer. Tyler, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. So that's it. You're choosing them over us because they have money. I'm choosing respect over disrespect, I clarified. Love over conditional approval. Support over sabotage. The fact that they happen to have money is irrelevant. Your terms are unreasonable, my father declared, beginning to rise. We came here in good faith to resolve this situation. No, I contradicted him. You came here expecting me to solve your problem by lying. I'm offering a different solution, honesty and accountability. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Whether genuine or strategic, I couldn't tell anymore. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. This is how I free myself. I corrected her. The money needs to be repaid by the end of the month. After that, the ball is in your court. You can choose to respect my boundaries and be part of my life in a limited way, or you can continue, as you always have, and lose me completely. I stood Ethan rising beside me. I've said what I needed to say. I wish you all well genuinely, but my priority now is my own well-being and happiness. Gabrielle, wait, my father called as we turned to leave. You can't just walk away from family. I paused, looking back at the three of them. These people who shared my blood but had never truly shared their hearts. Family is more than DNA, I said softly. It's a choice you make every day. I hope someday you understand that. With those words, Ethan and I walked out of the cafe and into the bright afternoon sunshine. I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd put down a burden I'd been carrying for decades. Are you okay? Ethan asked as we reached the car. I'm better than okay, I replied with complete honesty. For the first time in my life, I feel truly free. 1 year later, Ethan and I stood in the nursery of our Cambridge home, putting the finishing touches on the room for our expected daughter. The walls were a soft sage green, adorned with framed illustrations from my favorite childhood books. A handcrafted rocking chair, a gift from Jack, sat in the corner beneath the window. What do you think? Ethan asked, hanging the final picture, a watercolor of a mother elephant and her baby. It's perfect, I said, resting a hand on my 7-month pregnant belly. She's going to love it. So much had changed in a year. My parents had eventually repaid the money, depositing it directly into my account, without a note or message of any kind. They had made no attempt to contact me since our meeting at the Meridian, apparently choosing pride over reconciliation. Tyler had sent a terse email 6 months ago suggesting a fresh start, but when I reiterated my conditions, respect boundaries, acknowledgement of past behavior, he too had disappeared into silence. I had mourned the family I wished I had, but I no longer mourned the family I actually had. Instead, I focused on the family Ethan and I were building together. Charlotte and Jack had been overjoyed at the news of their first grandchild, already spoiling her with books and toys and tiny designer outfits. More significantly, Ethan and I had established the Thompson Parker Scholarship Fund, providing financial support to students estranged from unsupportive families. The first 5 recipients had begun college that fall, each of them carrying dreams that might otherwise have been deferred or abandoned. Do you ever regret it? Ethan asked quietly, as we stood surveying the nursery. Setting those boundaries, I considered his question carefully. No, I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they couldn't be the parents I needed. But I don't regret choosing myself, choosing us, choosing a healthier pattern for our daughter. He wrapped his arms around me from behind his hands, joining mine over our growing child. She's going to have everything we can give her, not just material things, but unconditional love, support, celebration of her unique self. That's the greatest gift we can offer, I agreed. To love her exactly as she is. As we stood there in the gentle afternoon light, I felt a profound sense of peace and rightness. The journey had been painful, but it had led me here, to this home, this love, this future bright with possibility. I had learned that family isn't defined by blood or obligation, but by love freely given and gratefully received. And in that knowledge I had found not just healing, but transformation. What would you do if you were in my situation? Would you have given your family another chance? Or do you think setting firm boundaries was the right choice? Comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose yourself sometimes. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings some comfort if you're facing similar challenges in your own family relationships.